This show is sponsored by Liquid IV. Like many people, I've come into the new year full of hopes and aspirations for the next 12 months. Maybe, like me, you're anxiously pacing the floor waiting for the F1 season to begin, or perhaps you've set yourself a more regular fitness goal, like running your first marathon or commuting to work by bike. Whatever you plan to do in 2025, come into your own way with extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV. Powered by Live Hydroscience, Liquid IV helps you break the mould. Liquid IV is so easy and convenient to tear, pour and enjoy, and it comes in several fantastic flavours, like their new Hydration Multiplier Sugar-Free Raspberry Lemonade, and other winners like White Peach and Rainbow Sherbet. As a regular flyer, I know how easy it is to become dehydrated almost without knowing it when you're travelling. That's why I always take Liquid IV on overseas trips. It's more than just a drink, and it's scientifically formulated to hydrate better than water alone. Just one stick and 16 ounces of water provides 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, plus 8 essential vitamins and nutrients. And what's more, it's always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free and soy-free. Embrace your ritual with extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code THERACE at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code THERACE at liquidiv.com.
Ever feel like everything's getting more expensive? Groceries, rent, even breathing. And let's not forget car insurance. It just keeps creeping up. But here's the thing. Insurify makes one part of life easier. It's an insurance comparison site that finds real-time quotes from dozens of top insurers. Insurance companies compete for your business, driving down prices. It's like having a friend who knows all the best deals, but without the smug grin. You could save as much as $1,025 a year, and you might even cut your bill in half. The best part, it's all online. No phone calls, no spam, no nonsense. You could be covered in as little as 10 minutes, and with an excellent star rating on Trustpilot, saving feels less impossible. So why not give it a shot? Visit insurify.com and see how much you can save. That's insurify.com. Average potential savings based on initial quotes received by 183,234 customers seeking insurance through Insurify. Actual savings may vary depending on state of residence, individual circumstances, coverage selections, and insurance provider. Savings results are not guaranteed.
You know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Meet Factor, your loophole in the laws of mealtime. Chef-crafted meals delivered with a tap, ready in just 2 minutes. You know what's even smarter? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Factor is dietitian approved, chef prepared, and you plated. Pretty smart, huh? Refresh your routine and eat smart with Factor. Learn more at factormeals.com.
The Athletic.
What's the toughest job in F1? The driving? Forget about it. That's the easy part. The hardest job in F1 is, without doubt, running a team. And I should know. I'm Otmar Szafnauer, and I've served as team principal for both the Aston Martin and Alpine F1 teams. From signing drivers to getting stuck into F1 politics, I've done it all. And on this show, I'll lift the lid on just what it takes to do the job. I'll also give my unique perspective on what's going on in F1 right now and share some behind-the-scenes stories from my career. Welcome to the Team Principal Podcast. Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the very first episode of the Team Principal Podcast with me, Otmar Szafnauer. I'm excited about this new venture and the chance to not only give a team principal's perspective on current events in Formula One, but also to share things about the job of being an F1 team principal that even the most diehard of fans might not know. But I'm not going to be doing it on my own, and I'm delighted to say that my deputy team principal for this podcast, at least, is the race's very own Ben Anderson. Ben, how's it going?
Hello, Otmar. Thanks for having me. My very first deputy team principal role. I guess I'm the Bob Fernley to your VJ Malia, or for modern audiences, the Jerome D'Ambrosio to your Fred Vasseur.
Well, I didn't realize. I realized that Jerome went to Ferrari from Mercedes, but I didn't realize that Fred deputized him. That's good for Jerome. And you're absolutely right. Bob Fernley was the deputy team principal at Force India when VJ was team principal and team owner. It looks like that title is proliferating now, and including yourself, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's an important but understated role, right? I remember Bob talking a lot about when you were COO at Force India, and they were trying to, I guess, kind of guide you towards being effectively the team principal and face of that team, as VJ was quite hands-off at this point. This is around kind of 2015, 2016 time. So Bob was kind of sometimes in the limelight, but very much about kind of supporting the starring cast of the show, shall we say.
Well, yeah, Bob was at the very beginning. He because VJ wasn't there very much, he kind of was VJ's representative to tell the team what VJ's expectations were and his ways of working. But once we learned who VJ was, and it didn't take very long, then then it was really the team that was there every day in the factory and at the races that really ran it. And although VJ was team principal in title, he was only at the factory maybe 5 days a year. He loved going to all the races.
He liked a yacht party in Monaco, I hear, as well.
Yeah, no, VJ's yacht parties were legendary. 700 plus people on his boat at the same time. I think the captain was a bit concerned after 800 after 700 he started getting concerned that if everybody would suddenly rush over to one side of the boat, he might have problems. But that never happened. We were well dispersed.
Imagine the wine bill.
Yeah, so both wine and Kingfisher beer, and
of course,
he at the time owned many brands in both United Spirits and United Breweries. But he had big businesses to run at the time, so you would see VJ at all the races, but like I said, very seldom did he come to the factory 5 days a year. And in Formula One, 90% of the work is done at the factory, 10% of it's done at the racetrack. And, I tell people that, look, an average team has about 1,000 employees. There's 1,000 team members on a Formula One team. And of those 1,000, 100 travel to every race and 900 don't. So even just by that measure, it's 90% of the work's done at the factory, 10% of it at the racetrack. It just, the TV companies don't broadcast what happens at the factory.
No.
They broadcast what happens on track, and that's because that's where the competition culminates, and that's what everyone likes to see.
I think it's probably good news for us that the broadcasters don't televise what goes on at the F1 factories, because that means we can bring to life insight from you on what really goes on in Formula One teams behind the scenes, because the team principal role, it's so broad. It covers almost all facets of F1, right?
It does. And, the team principals are often seen at the racetrack because that's where the cameras are. But, for me, for example, 80%, 90% of my time was at the factory, not at the race weekend. And that's where the lion's share of the work happens. And that's where all the development happens. The race engineers can either extract the maximum out of that package or not, but they usually don't make it go any faster than it theoretically can. That all happens back at the factory.
So shall we tell everyone what we've got coming up for our first episode? As it's February, we're recording this first episode from Casa Otmar, I might add, which is a very nice treat. Thank you for welcoming us in and introducing us to your dog Bear.
It's a bigger treat for me because I didn't have to go anywhere for this.
That's true. Yeah. We'll send the invoice for petrol money on in due course. So February, we're getting into kind of pre-season. There are so many drivers switching teams this year. I mean, from 2023 to 2024, it was an unprecedented stability. And now we've got one of those seasons where almost everything's turned on its head and almost every team has got a new driver coming in. But at Ferrari, massive news with Lewis Hamilton coming in, the most decorated driver ever in Formula One, coming to Formula One's most famous, most successful team. There's a lot of hype about that. And also, what happens with his rookie successor at Mercedes, Kimi Antonelli, and how he integrates at Mercedes following in the footsteps of such a great driver as Lewis. So we thought for episode 1, we'd get you to explore how a team integrates a new driver into a team. And then perhaps we get you to rank the 2025 driver pairings according to which you think would be the best to manage and maybe the most tricky to manage.
Sounds good, Ben.
Cool. But first, there is a chance that some people listening to this podcast might not know too much about you. So should we do a potted history of Otmar Szafnauer's career? Obviously, you've got, F1 team principal experience, but your F1 career goes way back to the Honda days, 20, 30 years, and before that, Ford Motor Company as well. So just kind of give us the overview of your experience.
Yeah, so very quickly, I started off racing in America in the 1980s.
You did Formula Ford, didn't you? Which
Formula
I
Ford.
also did, so we have that in common.
Exactly, in Formula 2000. When I was racing Formula Ford, it was always a goal of mine to make it to the Formula Ford Fest at Brands Hatch. That was a big deal in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, massive.
I never made it over, but some of the fellows that I raced with did. And then I raced F2000 in the USAC series in a Reynard Formula 2000 car, and that's how I met Adrian Reynard.
Okay, yeah.
He thereafter was one of the founding members of British American Racing. It was British American Tobacco, Adrian Reynard, and Craig Pollock. And
Jacques Villeneuve.
Jacques Villeneuve with Craig. And he asked me to join that team as operations director, and I think I made the commitment to Adrian in 1997 and joined in 1998.
Okay.
So I was the first operations director at British American Racing, and then from there, vice president of Honda Racing when Honda owned the team. From there, Force India with VJ
and Bob
as chief operating officer, and Bob, and then team principal and CEO of Racing Point, where we won in Bahrain with Sergio Perez.
Indeed.
And then team principal and CEO of Aston Martin, Aston's first ever podium with Sebastian Vettel, second place in Baku. And then after that, team principal of the Alpine Formula One team.
Yeah. So you know the score. You know how Formula
I know the
One
score,
works.
28 years in Formula One and probably 35 years of racing, if not longer.
Well, a team principal's perspective is what we're after on this podcast. I'm so excited to figure out what we can learn together as we go on this journey. For those who may be newer to F1, the scope of the team principal job is massive, right? So stop me if you've never had to do any of these things. Manage a multi-million-dollar budget, calm a pair of warring teammates, manage egos in your technical team, act as a go-between between ownership and sponsors, sign sponsors, hire and fire drivers, hire and fire other personnel. Basically, in F1, the buck stops with the team principal, right?
No, everything you said is part of being a team principal, and some of those things.
There's even more to it?
There's even more to it. Yeah, there's even more to it. It's
a massive job.
Yeah, what somebody once told me, when you look at an organization chart, and nowadays a Formula One team, when I was at Alpine, for example, we had nearly 1,000 people. I would imagine most teams are 1,000 plus now.
Yeah.
And when you look at an org chart of 1,000 people, there's a lot of boxes, a lot of names, and a lot of lines.
Just remembering them all must be.
Well, yeah, and you should. You should make an effort to remember everyone, what they do, what their home life is like, and make them a valued member of the team, because they are, and make them feel that way. But somebody once said, when you look at an org chart with all those people on it, the team principal's role is to be the white part of an org chart, to keep everybody together, keep everyone pulling in the same direction. It's not the lines and it's not the names, but you as a team principal are making sure that the white bits in the org chart are functioning the way they should be functioning. And I remembered that, and made sure that that glue that held everybody together, that was a team principal's role. And somebody else said, the team principal, when he comes into the factory, sprinkles a bit of fairy dust. Everybody wants to talk to him and or her, and have a bit of time, have his ear, make sure that the team principal listens to everyone's concerns, their suggestions, and implements all those that make sense to get better.
Yeah, it sounds like you're effectively the glue that kind of binds the whole thing together from top to bottom. So an always-on kind of job, one that you get no kind of rest really, and you have to be across so many different things.
Well, it's funny. Bernie Ecclestone once told me, he said, Otmar, in Formula One, if you work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you probably won't win. But if you don't, for sure you won't win. And he's right.
Let's focus in this first episode on a specific element of the team principal role. We talked about the big story of the winter earlier, Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari. So putting your team principal hat on, I'd like to know how you'd go about helping Lewis Hamilton, who spent so long at Mercedes, pretty much his whole career. He counts, even the McLaren years as Mercedes powered. His whole career has been with one manufacturer. He's now joining the most famous team of all, going to Ferrari, bucket list thing for him. How do you integrate him into a new team? How hands-on do you think Fred Vasseur has been over the winter, and what would you expect Fred to have been doing during this period?
Yeah, so Lewis is I don't know Lewis as well as, say, Toto does, or maybe
Sure.
even Fred, but I do know him, and I've worked with his father quite a bit when he was representing Paul di Resta.
Anthony.
As his manager, and I was at Force India. So I know the family, and I know Lewis is, like you said, of Formula One. He's ultra competitive. So from that regard, you have to do nothing with Lewis. He will work hard. He's a competitor. He knows what to do. But what you have to do for him is manage the change, because it will be different. So those differences you have to introduce Lewis to very quickly and often, so he's comfortable in his new environment as quickly as possible. And that it starts to seem second nature soon, but that takes time. So you want to shortcut the time that it takes for Lewis to feel 100% comfortable in his new environment. So that's what I would be doing. And that means, introducing him to the entire team, getting him into the simulator quickly, getting him into a 2-year-old car very quickly, because there will be differences. And, at the margin, those nuances, some things will be better, some things won't be as good, but they definitely will be different. And just getting over those differences, so you forget the old and you adapt the new, and you want to do that ASAP.
Yeah, of course, because time is of the essence, right, in Formula One. But if you've got a driver like Lewis who's been around for ages, won everything there is to win, how hands-on do you need to be in this process? Will Fred be texting him like constantly through the winter? Will he just be hands-off, letting Lewis dictate terms? Like, how do you think it will work?
Yeah, I think somewhere in between. If that were me, I would talk to Lewis and see what he's comfortable with, what process. But I would be focused on, getting him immersed into the Ferrari way sooner rather than later. And I'm sure Lewis will bring with him many, many things where he can advise and say, hey, you know what, we did it this way, and I think this way's better, or I would prefer this, please, can we do it this way? And then Fred's job is to get the organization to change in order to give Lewis what he wants in areas where Lewis brings something with him that was better in his past. So you've got to learn from Lewis. Like you said, he's won everything. He's probably the best driver in our time in Formula One, and you should take the learnings that he has and adjust the team such that you can improve and use his experience in order to improve the entire team.
Is it a time of year where you spend much time with the drivers, or is it a case-by-case, personality-by-personality basis that you make that judgment?
It's a time of year where the drivers start coming back to the factory start driving the new car in the simulator, doing seat fits, adapting to the new chassis,
or doing testing of previous cars, which is what Lewis and Charles have been doing, right?
and that's more important for Lewis. But if you've got a driver that's been with you for a long time, you're testing a previous cars as a car that he drove 2 years ago, and it doesn't much matter. But yeah, so in general, the drivers start coming in more and more into the factory now and doing more simulator work. And, every time you get a aero upgrade that you test in the simulator, the drivers are there doing it, giving feedback as to what they like, hoping that feedback can then go into some redesigned parts in the car to make it better for them. And for sure, the time spent at the factory with the engineers and the design team ramps up now in February and January, much more so than towards the end of last year.
If you're managing that process with a new driver, is it a case of you trying to kind of almost give them information overload, as many people as they can meet, as many things as they can see, or do you have to kind of manage that process so they're not overwhelmed, regardless of whether they're as experienced as Lewis or not?
I think you manage the process and you have to prioritize, who sees Lewis, I'm sure.
So what would the priorities be in that case? Like if you were listing it out, like
it's generally, the chief engineer that will take Lewis or his race engineer under his wing, and then take him through to the people that the interaction or the people within the team he needs to interact with first in order to have the biggest impact on the performance of the car. So it's always a focus of on-track performance first. And then for sure, the rest of the team, you've got to motivate everybody within the team, and the drivers can do that, especially a new driver like Lewis coming to Ferrari. It would be great for him to meet every person on that team. But like I said, prioritize it. Meet the ones that have a bigger impact on performance first, and then meet everybody thereafter.
What about the other driver? Because if you're someone like Charles, who's been there, since he was a kid, grown up with the team in Formula One, and then this superstar new guy comes in, all the focus is going to be on him naturally because people are excited. Rank and file staff are going to be like, 7-time world champion is joining. That's massive. Does that other driver need some extra love? Are they going to feel like their nose is put out of joint a little bit? I know they'll say publicly all the time,
we're all human, so I can imagine a little bit of that. And as a team principal, you have to be cognizant of that. You have to be empathetic, understand what the other driver's feeling too, and make sure he's not left out or is there at the same time, or if there are things that you should do in order to make sure that it takes two drivers to win a world championship. So make sure that they're both happy and in a good place going into the season. And like you say, it's only natural for that team to be excited about having a 7-time world champion like Lewis join them. So it's the new toy that you got at Christmas, and but eventually, you need both drivers to perform to a high level to win that world championship, because it's very competitive. So you've got to be aware of the other drivers' feelings as well. Like I said, we're all human and we all have those feelings.
Are there times you can remember from your own experience where either the established driver became particularly unsettled quickly, or the new driver just struggled to integrate and you found it challenging, that process to kind of get them onboarded, I guess is the phrase you'd use in calls?
I when I think back, I remember Sergio Perez coming into Force India and
2014.
Yeah, and trying to beat Hülkenberg, for example, and but Hülkenberg's he's a tough cookie. He doesn't, he's mentally strong, and I remember Sergio saying, "I'm going to beat Nico." So his whole focus was to beat Nico Hülkenberg, and I remember thinking, if you do, that'll be great for the team. And in year one,
is that a good mindset then, or is it counterproductive in the sense that
no? If they work together, it's a good mindset.
Okay, but you need the right balance of personalities.
You need the right balance, and you need to be able to give them both the same equipment, such that they can equally have a chance of beating his teammate. And you've got to make sure that they're not so competitive against each other that the team suffers. So they still share data. They still want that car that they're in to be as fast as it can be. They still help each other with, with setup direction and feedback. And that happened with Nico and Sergio.
Have you had pairings that didn't work so well that you can remember?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There are pairings where.
What was the hardest one that you had to deal with?
Yeah. So a working relationship that was more forced than natural was Pierre and Esteban at Alpine.
Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon.
Yeah.
Definitely not friends coming in. There was
not friends coming in. They did collaborate. They did work together, but it wasn't so natural as some of the others.
You don't always have to like the people you work with, though, either, do you? That's the thing.
So. No. You just have to, somebody once told me that species that collaborate survive and those who don't go extinct. So, you don't have to like them, but you should collaborate to make the team better off, and you too can be better off if you collaborate, because you're not just racing your teammate, you're racing 18 other competitors in Formula One, so you got to beat them too. And when you collaborate, you make your car better.
Well, what did you have to do differently as a team boss to get those two working together for the benefit of the team, compared to, say, the Hülkenberg-Perez relationship that was natural and easy?
Yeah, you have to remind them, talk to them, reiterate that they're working for a team. There's 1,000 people behind them helping them, and it's about making the team better off, not making themselves better off at the expense of the team. And you just had to remind them often, and even with that, they would agree, but once the helmet goes on and the
out for themselves,
red mist sets in, then they crash into each other, for example.
Have you ever had an experience where it just broke down? It became kind of two one-car teams?
Close. Force India with Esteban and Sergio. We were close to that when they kept running into each other, and we had to threaten them with
17 and 18, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, 17 more. And even 18 in Singapore. They came together.
And you had to have rules of engagement, I remember that.
Yeah, we did. We had rules of engagement, and we were going to separate them by cutting their gearbox seals so they would move.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'd separate them at the start of the race. At one,
they get grid penalty.
And they get five place grid penalty, so they wouldn't start next to each other.
That's so harmful for the team, though, right? Because then you're literally sacrificing half of your race.
It's harmful for the team, but if they crash into each other, it's harmful. It's worse for the team. So it's the least of the two evils.
Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. You'll get 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with the welcome offer of 150,000 points, your business can soar to all new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
This episode is brought to you by Nerds Gummy Clusters, the sweet treat that always elevates the vibe. With a sweet gummy surrounded with tangy, crunchy nerds, every bite of Nerds Gummy Clusters brings you a whole new world of flavor. Whether it's game night, on the way to a concert, or kicking back with your crew, unleash your senses with Nerds Gummy Clusters.
So good, so good, so good.
Get ready, because it's time to save at your Nordstrom Rack store. Now through February 23rd, take an extra 40% off red tag clearance boots, jackets, and sweaters. We're talking the best cold weather styles from Vince, Cole Haan, Sam Edelman, and more. All on sale for even less. All sales final. You never know what you'll find, but you know it's gonna be so good. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
So before the break, we were chatting about Ferrari, Fred Vasseur, how he would manage basically a superstar driver like Lewis Hamilton coming into a new team. But at the other end of the spectrum, at Mercedes, got Toto Wolff having to manage a driver who's barely passed his driving test, still in his teens, rookie Kimi Antonelli, no F1 experience apart from a very unfortunate and well-publicised crashing debut in FP1 at Monza in 2024. So how do you go about getting a rookie driver like that with all that hype and expectation up to speed compared to, having a superstar driver coming in, or at least someone who's been around the block?
With a rookie, it's more about Formula One knowledge and the differences between where they've come from, Formula 2 or Formula 3 into Formula 1. That jump is massive and the differences are huge, and you've got to get them acclimated with those differences as soon as possible. And the best rookies I found are the ones that have no preconception of what they're going to find, and they're completely open to learning, and they listen more than they talk, especially
Good skill.
Yeah, great skill to have as a rookie, especially at the beginning. And I remember having run a few rookies before we decided to go with Esteban Ocon at Force India. And one of the reasons we chose Esteban at the time was because he listened more than he talked. He took everything in. He adjusted based on the information that was given to him by his experienced race engineers, took it on board and learned from it. And as a rookie, that's what you need, because if you have that ability, you climb up that learning curve, that steepness of the learning curve at the beginning very quickly, and you can shortcut the process of getting up to speed. And, that's a bit team, but that's also a bit driver. And Antonelli, I don't know him at all, and but I would imagine, knowing Toto, he wouldn't have chosen somebody that didn't have those skills.
Well, yeah, he's talked him up as basically the next Max, and he's plonked him straight in at the Works Mercedes team, which is, even Red Bull didn't do that with Max, right? They gave him a bit of time in the junior team to kind of get up to speed.
Yeah, but Toto doesn't have that junior team.
No, and he didn't then, and that was one of the reasons he lost out on Max. But it still seems like a big risk, no? A team as big as Mercedes, expected to fight for the championship every year, to throw in, as good as you might think the kid is, to throw him into that environment for your debut season. That's a lot to ask, isn't it?
Yeah, but the true superstars of our sport can deal with it. Lewis dealt with it.
True.
He went to McLaren. I was going to say Alonso dealt with it, but I think he was at Minardi first.
Yes, he was. Yeah, he had that outstanding season in 2001, didn't he?
Yeah, before he was plunked into a world championship contending team. But yeah, the best rookies can deal with it. Yeah, Max didn't go to Red Bull straight away, but that's because Red Bull have that option. They did the same with Vettel. I think Vettel won in a Toro Rosso before he won in a Red Bull.
He did, yeah.
But I'm sure Mercedes will give Antonelli all the support that he needs and enough time, because he's done remarkable things in the lower formulas. He's sure is a talent.
So what does Toto's job list look like compared to Fred? We talked about Fred kind of being
totally
probably
different.
fairly hands-off with Lewis because he's been around so long, but with all that expectation, the fact that Antonelli needs to hit the ground running, the fact that Mercedes can't afford to carry the second driver, and okay, he's going to be a talented kid, but Formula One, as you said, it's a massive change for anyone. So how does he manage Kimi? What does he have to do?
Antonelli's got a lot more to learn, and like I said, because he's got a lot more to learn, there's a lot of listening and adjusting and taking in information and simulator running. And
will he be in the factory like all the time then, basically, if you're the young kid?
Yeah, so probably more, but not all the time. There are other things to do. You need to learn a little bit about car development and how that happens. You need to, it's good to understand.
Are you sending him into departments then? And basically going, like, you're having a seminar with the aerodynamicist today, and
I would definitely do that. Sit with the aerodynamicist, understand how car performance is developed from an aero perspective. Sit with the technical director, the chief technical officer as well.
So it's like going back to school. You've basically got to have lessons with all these kind of key bits.
Yeah, a little bit.
Wow. As well as do all the other stuff, which is kind of getting yourself ready for pre-season.
They have the time though.
Okay.
They have the time. They're not overworked.
Okay.
They're not overworked. So if you
no student is, right?
If you want to learn those things and you're willing, which a lot of drivers are, then you definitely have the time to do it.
How do you manage the rookie driver kind of through the season? Are you having to spend more time with them than the other driver or other people in the team? Do you have to
maybe a little bit at the beginning, and then see how it goes. You don't want to spend too much time, but it's a bit of a feedback loop. You see how it goes, see where he might need some assistance, some help.
Depends on the personality.
Depends on the person. Depends on the driver. Depends how quickly he learns. And there might be some aspects where he's learning very quickly, and others that he might need a helping hand in. And some drivers can benefit from every once in a while going to see a driver coach and doing some days in a instrumented car to sharpen up some of their driving skills. Others can benefit from some sports psychology, to try to get them into a zone. Others spend some time with sports psychologists, and those sports psychologists give some tips and techniques to their physios that go through that routine before a race, as if the sports psychologist were there. Others will go see the sports psychologist in a different setting, but not at the racetrack. So it all depends on what works for the driver, but all those things would be open to a rookie. And as time goes on, you have to figure out what would work best for him and apply that.
Casting your mind back, you worked with Esteban Ocon when he was a rookie. As you mentioned, you selected him partly based on personality traits he showed when he was testing for you. But going back to that first season, how did you go about managing him? What challenges did he throw at you? Because it was a difficult season as well in terms of him working with the established driver.
Esteban was very determined, so you didn't have to push him along in any of the areas. You just had to point him in the right direction. He did it on his own. Esteban, for example, at the time wasn't well compensated. We didn't have much money. He was a rookie. So, we had to discuss and adjust some of the compensation to make him feel more comfortable and more valued. And, so you just have to...
Was he banging down your door going, I need a rise, boss?
I need a raise. Yeah, exactly that. And then you have to assess, how much more value the entire team would get from a little bit more money that wasn't contractually due to him. But, if you said, I hear you and you're right, and we value you, and here's a little bit more money that, oh, by the way, I don't have to give you. I'm doing it because I think you're right and we value you. You can get a lot more performance out of somebody that you think is pushing as hard as they think they can. And then, you might get a little bit more.
How did you do it? Did you just give him a bonus, because there's bonuses for results are kind of a standard thing, or did you go, no, actually, you're doing so well, we believe in you, here's an extra 100K or whatever?
Yeah, the right way to do it is to say, continue down the path that you're on, and if you continue to improve at the same rate, then for sure I'll consider a raise. And then you put that incentive out there for the future. You don't do it straight away, and it works better.
And how did it work out?
Worked out well.
Yeah, so he responded positively.
He definitely responded positively.
How many tenths of a second per lap in the car?
He didn't measure it that way. It's just about attitude and hard work and getting better and better and better. And that may have happened without the raise, but it's not a controlled experiment, so you don't know.
It's chicken and egg, isn't it?
It definitely happened with. And had I said, no, I'm sorry, that's what you signed up for, maybe it would have happened too, but you don't know.
Yeah. Managing a rookie driver, obviously sometimes they come out the traps really fast, everything goes smoothly. Sometimes they come out and have a few scrapes, some crashes. You've got budget cap Formula One now, so that's even more expensive. How do you kind of manage that whole situation? And also the limelight, because you can't hide from the media in Formula One as a driver. They're not used to it, right? So there's a lot to deal with.
Again, managing the rookie, you just have to give them good information. And, they've been racing their whole lives. They understand. Just you got to tell them about the budget cap, and you've got to tell them how valuable car parts are and how much it costs to replace them. And
if they've been paying attention in those lessons, they'll know.
Well, yeah, it depends how if they even step into the accounts office. But you've got to explain to them the value of not crashing. But at the same time, they got to learn the limits of the car. So
would you budget extra, knowing that you've got a rookie driver?
Not really. Yeah,
you trust them.
Yeah, trust them to do the right thing. You don't budget to the penny anyway. You always leave yourself a buffer. And if the unfortunate circumstance happens of what happened to, I think, Williams last year, then you're always going to go racing, but you'll just be compromised from a performance perspective, and nobody wants that.
Have you worked with any new drivers in your career that just didn't get it? Where things got away from them? How hard was it to keep your cool in that process as well? Do you have drivers where you were just like, I wanted to shake them?
There were drivers that didn't get some stuff, and it's not that they weren't intelligent drivers. They just, I don't know, some mental block and didn't get it. But over time, you learned that they're not going to get it, and you deploy different techniques such that you get to where you want to go anyway, even though the driver doesn't get it. So,
Can you give us an example?
I'd rather not tell you who the driver was because he's still alive.
Oh, okay, yeah. But if we call them driver X,
what
kind of situation?
Driver X often didn't know why they were as fast as they were. They couldn't feed back to the team why they went as quick as they did, and they were often very quick.
Okay,
which was disheartening for the team, because once you knew the car could go that quickly with the driver, you wanted to repeat it over and over, and the driver couldn't tell you, why on that run or that session they were as quick as they were. What was the difference between FP3 and FP2 when we didn't make that many changes to the car, but now suddenly you're a half second quicker? I don't know.
No idea.
And that was...
that's a failure of your most important sensor, isn't it?
It is. It's a failure of a big sensor. So once we knew that, then we knew we couldn't really rely on the driver feedback to tell us. So we had to start looking at other data in order to be able to ascertain why the car and driver combination was so much better.
Wow. Coming back to the overall topic, Fred Vasseur's situation versus Toto Wolff's situation, Hamilton or Antonelli, whose job would you prefer to have in this winter period?
I'd prefer to have Fred's.
Just because it's smoother,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Fred's worked with Lewis before in the junior formulas. They've known each other for a long time.
They've done Formula 3, GP2.
Yeah, and now, it's Fred's job, like I said, to get Lewis comfortable at Ferrari, and I think I'd rather be doing that than going through the rookie acclimation to a Formula One team. I'd rather be Fred in this one than Toto.
Every cup of Nespresso coffee is an invitation to transform your morning routine into a ritual you can treasure each and every day. Using the Virtuo Pup, a simple touch of the button freshly brews bold aromas and a rich, velvety crema layer for delicious cafe-quality coffee at home. Whether you enjoy your coffee hot or over ice, every sip, every morning is unforgettable. Nothing tastes like Nespresso coffee. Visit Nespresso.com or our app to explore our full range of easy-to-use machines and coffees not found anywhere else.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
You found your person. Now let The Knot help you with everything else. The Knot connects you to the wedding inspo, vendors, venues, and planning tools you need to make your day totally you. Having helped plan 25 million weddings, we've got your back when it comes to every little detail like RSVPs, budgets, and more. Because your wedding comes to life with the connections that matter the most. Get started at theknot.com/audio. The Knot. Let's plan your wedding together.
Okay, Otmar, as we mentioned before, a season of massive change in terms of driver lineups. So some brand new teammate pairings for team principals to manage this season. We thought it'd be quite a fun way to end the first episode, to get your thoughts on how easy or difficult these teammate pairings might be to manage. We love a kind of ranking on the race. Normally it's to do with performance, but this time we're going to do it based on how the team principal would view things in terms of how easy or difficult their life might be. So stable at McLaren, you've got Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Obviously they had a few kind of, flashpoints last year with papaya rules and Oscar not being so keen on playing the team game.
Yeah, so Lando and Oscar performed really well, won the Constructors' World Championship. I can see Oscar getting closer to Lando, but still I think that pairing will be harmonious throughout the year.
You don't see any twitches like at Hungary, where Norris was refusing, it seemed to be refusing to back off when he needed to.
Maybe some twitches, but no more than last year.
Okay. And Ferrari, obviously, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc.
I think Ferrari, Lewis and Charles will be, that will be pretty harmonious.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'd give that an 8 out of 10.
Wow,
I don't see any issues there.
Is that because of a personality blend, do you think?
I think so. And Fred's ability to manage them.
Okay, Red Bull, Max Verstappen, and whoever they've decided to insert in the second car. This time it's Liam Lawson who has the privilege.
I think that'll be harmonious as well.
Is that because Liam won't be allowed to get near him?
I'm not sure Liam won't be allowed to get near him. I think Liam, although very talented, Max is one of the best that we've seen. So for Liam to get really close to Max will be a tall order. And I think, Liam will learn as the year goes on, get closer to Max. But still, I think, Max won't be threatened. So there'll be harmony there.
Well, Christian Horner's talked about being a bit more clear about the number one, number two dynamic there. Obviously, one of your old drivers, Sergio Perez, was in there and had that kind of role, but it was a more difficult journey for him because he went into the team thinking, right, I'm going to beat Max, and then found that was practically impossible, and then had to kind of adjust. Yeah. But it seems like to make things more obvious, Christian's going into this season thinking, right, Liam's there to back Max up. So is that...
I never had a number one and number two. But when you don't have a number one and number two, you have to have rules of engagement that we always had, and we always made both drivers understand before the season started what those rules were. We made both drivers agree to the rules, and then we implemented the rules just as we agreed at the start of the season. We're totally fair, and drivers understand that.
Do you have punishments when they, even though they understand the rules, they go against them? Like, how do you deal with that situation? The naughty boy corner, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first, you got to make sure that never happens. And there are ways, even in the race, to make sure that doesn't happen. So.
You pit them at certain times.
Exactly.
So they end up
you got control.
Yeah. Okay. But when it inevitably does happen, because occasionally it does, how do you handle that situation? What do you do?
Yeah, you incentivize them not to do it again, either through punishment or through other incentives. But it's easy.
Do you call them into your office, shout and scream at them, or have special meetings? Is it like a kind of...
Yeah, if you have to, you call them into your office and tell them you're disappointed, and just like children.
Yeah, well, exactly. Children need to be, careful, important, reconfirmed boundaries at all times, right?
Exactly.
There we go. You see F1
But you've got to be fair.
Don't grow up.
And whatever threats you make, you have to
follow through.
You've got to follow through.
That's the first rule of parenthood, isn't it?
And deliver.
Yeah. Okay, Mercedes, George Russell and rookie Kimi Antonelli, who we've discussed at length. How do you see that pairing?
I think that will be harmonious.
What if Kimi's amazing from the start and gives George a hell of a time from the get-go?
Well,
does that change it at all for you? Or?
No, I'm sure that's what Toto wants, two good drivers, and then you manage them.
Nice problem to have.
Nice problem to have.
Yeah, okay. Aston Martin, your old hunting ground. Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll, obviously quite an established pairing now.
Yeah, so they know each other. I think harmonious. They've been harmonious ever since Fernando went there, and I think that'll continue.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Alonso's role there is in some ways a coach to Lance, right? I imagine Lawrence wants Alonso to kind of...
Or maybe not coach, but maybe mentor. Maybe that's a better word. And, to mentor Lance into world championship ways. And, Alonso's a good guy to learn from.
Yeah, definitely. Alpine, another of your old teams. Pierre Gasly, but not Esteban Ocon anymore.
Which will mean even more harmonious.
Automatically
with Jack Doohan. Good rookie, race winner in the past.
And knows the team very well because he's been in the academy, right?
Yep, and has done a lot of miles in the TPC program, so he'll be ready. Harmonious. I don't see any issues there.
Lots of harmony on the grid so far. It's very disappointing.
Well, maybe that's why they chose the drivers they chose.
Maybe.
But who doesn't want harmony in their driver pairing?
Well, we all have a bit of harmony, I think. But except for it's a good story if it breaks down. But Alpine, obviously, they signed Franco Colapinto over the winter as nominally a reserve driver, but even Williams felt he's going there to basically take Jack's seat. Can you foresee a mid-season change there? And if in a situation where you do change drivers in season, how do you deal with that as a team principal?
Well, look, I can foresee that happening for sure. And it all depends on the driver's personality, whether they respond more to a threat as opposed to support.
Carrot and stick.
Exactly. Some you got to put your arms around them and support them to get them better. In other words, they respond more to a threat of competition. If I don't do well, somebody is waiting in the wings to take my seat. I don't know if that was the plan at Alpine, but you say that's what Williams think. And, Colapinto did a good job, especially at the beginning when he took over from Sargent, was straight away on the pace, and he's got the capability of stepping in and being quick straight away. But let's see what happens.
Do you know much about Jack? Did you cross paths?
Yeah. He was he was there when I was there. I watched a lot of his F2 races, and we put him in the car a couple of times. And he's very professional, very determined, driven.
How do you think he'll handle the Franco element based on your knowledge of him?
Yeah, Jack's not overly emotional, so he'll just do the best he can and not worry about it.
Take it in his stride, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Right, Haas. This is the teammate pairing that I think the outside world, F1 fandom, and some of us creators, journalists think has the most potential to be explosive. You've got your old mate Esteban Ocon and Ollie Bearman, this exciting British Formula One rookie who Ferrari really rate. So how do you see that dynamic? I mean, Ayo Komatsu's already said that he's establishing rules of engagement and whatnot going into the season.
I was just going to say that. If I were Ayo, I would do just that. Have rules of engagement now, have the drivers understand what they are to try to minimize that explosiveness between drivers. Do it up front and stick with it.
Harmonious or not harmonious?
Less than the other ones that I've
okay, so we finally have at least a slightly potential for disharmony rather than completely harmonious. Racing Bulls, Yuki Tsunoda, obviously well established there, overlooked for Red Bull Racing, but nominated as their reserve. And Isaac Hadjar, complete rookie, coming in after a successful season in Formula 2.
I think any driver can get on with Yuki. I don't see any disharmony there whatsoever. I think he's a likable guy. I think he's super fast, and that'll be a good pairing. A pairing to watch. I'd really like to see what happens there.
Sauber, your old mate again, Nico Hülkenberg, in the twilight of his career but loving life, heading for the Audi future, and Gabriel Bortoleto, an exciting rookie that Sauber Audi made a big play to get out of McLaren to put in that car. So how do you see that one?
Yeah, look, I don't know Bortoleto at all, apart from that he's a talented young man, and just having seen what he's done in the lower formulas. But I know Nico really, really well, and supreme competitor, wants to do really, really well, but he will help you. He puts the team first, and
he's not easily ruffled either. Is the impression I get.
And over a lap, he can be really quick.
Yeah, dynamite. Final one, Williams. Now, I think there's potential here for fireworks. You've got
agree.
Alex Albon, established team leader, basically hasn't really had much of a challenge since he's been at that team because, Logan Sargent underperformed and Williams didn't really have a kind of ready-made guy to put in the car alongside him once they got rid of Nicholas Latifi. Carlos Sainz going in there after being a multiple race winner for Ferrari, arguably doesn't deserve to be dropping down the grid that much. Should be in one of the top cars, but isn't. So how does that dynamic play out, where you've got an established kind of number one driver, if you like, and a race-winning, super competitive guy coming in underneath?
Alex has shown that he's worthy of his Formula One seat. Has done a great job at Williams. He's quick, he's consistent, and because he knows the team so well, and you're absolutely right about Sainz, should be with a top team, is moving to Williams. I think it will be an interesting dynamic, and it'll also be interesting to see who's quicker, because I'm not so sure of who the quicker driver is going to be at that team. And because of it, if I'm right and they're close in their performance, then you never know what could happen. I can't predict which one will come up on top, and if that's the case, maybe we'll see some fireworks there.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's a good problem to have again, right?
You'd
rather have the performance,
as
have to do some management.
Exactly, as opposed to having one driver performing at a really good level and the other one quite far away. You don't want that.
Looking at those 10 lineups, if you had to pick one that you would want to have, which pairing would you pick?
For me, I'd go with the Ferrari pairing.
Lewis and Charles.
That
feels like a good place to end the first episode.
Ben, thank you very much for being my deputy TP.
Oh, I appreciate it. Hopefully I did well.
You did really well.
Oh, great. You were a great team principal. So
thank you.
Here's to many more.
First to many. Thanks very much for listening. We really hope you enjoyed it, and that if you did, you'll share it with a friend. Ben and I will be back soon with more team principal talk. But in the meantime, if you'd like to drop us a line with any thoughts or comments, you can email podcasts@the-race.com. Until next time, goodbye.
The Athletic.